Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about configuring password and account lockout policies. These policies are designed to make it really hard for an intruder to guess or crack user password in an attempt to gain access to your systems. We need to look at these policies from two different perspectives. We can configure these policies in default domain policy, which will be applied on all of the users in your domain, or we can configure fine-grained password policies as well for any specific group of users. We'll talk that in later in this video. Let's see how you configure password and account lockout policies inside your default domain policy. Okay, so for that we are in DC1 domain controller for our dev.com domain, and I am going to open up the group policy management editor to show you the password policy that we configure to make our environment more secure. So we need to go into the tools here in server manager, then click on group policy management here. Now let's it's expanded the dev.com domain. Now right click on the default domain policy, click on edit. Now let's maximize it. Here you can see there are two different options: computer configuration and user configuration. Here you need to expand the policy computer configuration and expand the Windows settings, expand security settings. Here let me just okay, here you can see account policies. Click on expand it. Here you can see password policy and account lockout policy. These two policies work together. So let me click on password policy here. Now you can see there are multiple policies here. So there are already some configuration made here, but let me explain it to you, and let me also change some settings for you. First of all, let's look at our password must meet complexity requirement policy. I'm going to double click on it. By the way, whenever you are setting any policies, if you are not exactly sure what it does, notice that most of them have tab called explain. Okay. So if you click on it, it does a great job of defining what the policy does and how it should be configured. For example, this policy determines whether your password have like make complexity things. Like if this policy is enabled, then the requirement of the password are listed right here, like special characters, numbers, and all. Okay, this is something we want. So this is already enabled, so you can click on enable and click on apply OK for it to enable. So now you have password made complexity requirement policy is enabled. Let's also see minimum password length. The idea here is the longer the password, the harder it is to compromise. Okay, then from a shorter password, the longer password is harder to compromise, especially if the hacker is using some type of brute force attack and is trying one password after another password until the right one is found. Then the longer the password is, the more characters that attacker has to try in various password strings that he is sending to the authentication system, right, to authenticate. Therefore, the longer the password, it is going to take the longer time to hack. But do not set it too high with a temptation in your mind, because if you make your password length too long, then password starts to become harder to remember. At the end, the user is going to maybe write down the password on a paper or note somewhere. So that is even more dangerous, right? So keep that in limit. So here we have defined our password to be 7 characters minimum. and that is okay for me as this is a, I mean, dummy system, and I am currently using it for demonstration purpose. So you can set it as per your requirement, like any characters, 10, 15, anything, but do not set it too high so that, I mean, the users have to remember that password and then they are not able to, because uh, a longer password they cannot remember it, right? If a 15 characters or 20 characters long password, so they cannot remember it, so keep that in mind. So set it in like 10 or 8, something like which you can remember, a normal user can remember. Okay, so let's now look at maximum password age policy. It's basically the age of your password after you set it. Okay, let's also enforce a maximum password is basically what we are going to do here is saying, you know what, after a certain number of days, let's say 45 in this case, so we are going to expire that password after 45 days, and the user needs to set a new password for his or her account. So here he needs to completely change it to a new password. Okay, so click on apply and okay. Now let's look at minimum password age policy. We want to set a minimum password age. You might be thinking that why would I set a minimum password age? Okay, the problem here is if we set a maximum password age like we just did, sometimes you will run into users who want to use their same favorite password over and over. They'll say, okay, I'll go ahead and change my password because I am being forced by this policy. Then they will change it. Then they will again change it to a similar password they are using, like their favorite password to the old password. Then that is not good, right? By setting a minimum password is we basically make it very difficult for them to do that. I'm going to set minimum password age to 7 days here. Click on apply, click on okay. So that will make a lot harder for the user to keep jumping back to their old good favorite password. Okay, so along with the same line, we want to enforce password history of pair. As you might guess, this works hand in hand with minimum password age. By enforcing password history, we specify that a user has to use certain number of new password before they will be allowed to reuse an old password. Okay, so it's already a good number here. I have specified its default, I think it's 24 here. So I don't want to change, but if you want, you can change it to according to your need, like maybe 10, 15, anything. So what it will do will it will remember the last 10 or 15 or anything you set here. Nah? It will remember that past 10 old password, and it will prevent you to use that old 10 password. Okay, so you it will be more secure at that time. So you can provide anything you want and click on apply and okay here. Now let's go down to our account lockout policies. The password policy we just configured here are good. They do make it harder for password to be compromised. But if we want to make it even harder for our password to be compromised by using account lockout policy, then the goal of the account lockout policy is to basically make it such that it takes so incredibly long try to some password attacker to hack our system, like a brute force attack or something. Okay, it is not feasible, but essentially what we're going to do, give a user a couple of tries, because sometimes people make mistakes and they tend to forget their password. But if they miss it more than a certain number of times, we are going to lock the account, because we are going to assume that whoever is trying to get into the system doesn't really know the password, and therefore it is not the actual user. So we are going to lock the user account. Now let's go and check account lockout duration policy here. So let me check. Let's go into explain tab. So here you can see it says this security settings determines the number of minutes a logged logged out account remains logged out, okay, before automatically becoming unlocked. So it basically means that if a account is getting logged after certain fail login attempt, so it is the duration till when the account will be logged, and then after that duration it is going to be unlocked automatically or not. That we will see next. Okay. So if I say here 10 minutes, 30 minutes and click on apply, okay, then that will be applied. Okay, let's say I am giving it 10 minutes, apply. So here we are getting a pop-up saying that if you will set this account lockout duration till 10 minutes, then we have to set the threshold for 5 login attempts, something like that. So let's click on OK and apply OK. So then we need to see the account lockout threshold. So let's check what it says. So here it says that this is security setting determines the number of failed login attempt that causes a user account to be logged out. Okay, so this is the number of failed attempts after which the user account will be logged out. So it's 5 here. Let's change it to 3. Okay, apply. Okay, okay. Now let's see this one, reset account lockout counter after. So what it means, let's see. Here it says this security setting determines the number of minutes that must elapse after a failed login attempt before the failed login attempt counter is reset to 0. So okay, let me explain here. So we have set the account lockout threshold to 3 year, right? So that means like a user is giving 3 failed login attempts, like giving 3 wrong passwords or something like that, the user account is going to be logged. So one failed attempt is going to be counted as one, I mean, counter. Okay, here. So after 3 counter, the user account is going to be logged out for 10 minutes. Huh. So for after 10 minutes, we can set it some duration that for after certain amount of duration, you can reset that account which is logged, and we can also undefine it, which means if we are undefining it, the account which is logged, that should be unlocked manually by the administrator of your organization. Okay, we don't want that. So we have set that 3 invalid login and the lockout duration is 10 minutes. So let's say after 10 minutes our account should be automatically logged out. Okay, automatically resetted the counter to 0. Okay, click on apply. Okay. So here is a key thing that you have to keep in mind. You can only apply one set of password and account lockout policy in your domain in your default domain policy. So if we minimize here and go to, yeah, so in the whole domain, you can only apply one password and account lockout policy here. So you can't again go here in your in a OU and just set a new policy and account lockout policy here. You can't do that. Okay. So for that level, like if I have some admin here in sales, okay, so sales admins, so if I want to create a different or higher level of account lockout policy or password policy for my sales admins, so for that, what I need to do is I need to configure fine grained password policy. Okay, so to configure fine grained password policy, we need to go into server. Okay, we need to go into server manager, go into tools, go into active directory administrative center here. So after that, here we need to select our domain, then search for system. Okay, double click, then search for password policy. Okay, password settings, double click. So there is nothing configured here, so let me click on new password settings. Okay, so okay, so I have defined a name of sales admin here, and I have given precedent 2. Precedence 2 means that it's kind of how you are telling the group policy management that this is something very important or less important. So I have given it 2. According to you, you can give anything. Okay, I have given the minimum password length 10, and we have already discussed this, so you can give according to you, maybe more or maybe less according to you. So the main thing is how we can specify that group. So in the second panel here, you are seeing this add button. Click on add. Now type in sales. So as you can see, I have just defined the name of the group which I want to select, and want these settings to be applied. So it is sales admins. So I'll click on OK. Now the group is added here. So all this policy will be applied to this group. Okay, so I'll click OK here. Okay, now you can see we have a specific policy which is being applied to sales admin group in our OU, and that this is password settings, like as we have discussing password policy. So this is a specific policy which we have created for the admins in sales OU. That's it for this video. In this video, we have talked about configuring password and account lockout policies. We talked about how to set these policies domain wide using the default domain policy. Then we ended this demonstration by talking about fine grained password policies that is applied to specific users group. Okay, so if you like the video, don't forget to like and please subscribe to my channel. Bye bye.